Do you remember Minecraft? Well, of course you do, but do you remember this Minecraft? Or this Minecraft? Do you remember when the Nether was a structure and not a biome? How about when duplication glitches were easy and the end of the world was literally right there? Let's roll the clocks back and see if you're a Minecraft veteran or just a bit of a noob. So let's start off with a surface level memory. Or maybe not surface level, but bedrock level. Because up until March of 2021, bedrock sat at Y level 0. But from that day on, when you got to Y level 0, you wouldn't hit bedrock anymore. You'd hit deep slate. And bedrock is all the way down at -60 to -64. When this changed with the Caves and Cliffs update, the height of the ores moved too. Most notably, diamonds. Because up until this point, the best way to get diamonds was to strip mine at Y level 12. But the likelihood of you finding them in caves wasn't actually as high as it is now. Remember, caves used to look like this, which is probably why I'm always so surprised at the size of these new caves. Now this next point is more for me to ask than anything else. Do people even use netherite? I was going to make a point about how, do you remember when diamonds were the best thing? But everyone remembers when diamonds were the best thing. So my question to you is, do you use netherite or do you use diamonds? Let me know. One thing that definitely has changed is the textures. This has happened a few times. The biggest change came back in 2019 when almost everything was changed. Not majorly, but you'd definitely notice it. The most noteworthy ones are things like netherrack and lava, which made the old nether really awful to look at, but nostalgic at the same time. Now this is one that, to my knowledge, Bedrock and Java are still split on. Because back in 2016, we, the Java players, saw an overhaul to the combat system in Java. So before this update, there was no cooldown mechanic when using a sword, and we could just spam it for maximum effect. Although it was more simple, I do prefer the more satisfying swing that we now have, where we can hit multiple players or things at once. This update also brought the option to use both hands, which is something I still haven't been using to its full potential. And this is great for things like shields, but ultimately, I do miss being able to just block with my sword. Nowadays, if I want to go over there, I fly. Over there, fly again. It's fast, easy and convenient, but arguably takes away from that old Minecraft feeling. Elytras make so many things just completely obsolete. Before the Elytra, a nice journey on a minecart was a peaceful thing. It was the fastest way of getting to most places. But now it's almost frustrating because we've all been spoilt by the Elytra and its speed. Even now though, after getting Elytra on most of my worlds, I have a horse but I never use it. Minecarts are just for fun. I don't bother with boats. And a coal-powered minecart? No, I don't think so. There are, however, videos out there of minecart journeys, almost like ASMR videos that people just watch for the sake of it. With that said though, it's believed that less than 10% of players ever acquire the Elytra in survival, so maybe I'm on my own here. So this one's got a few names. God Apple, Notch Apple, OP Apple, but officially Enchanted Golden Apple. Now, technically it's not been removed, but what has been removed is the crafting recipe for it. Not only did it used to be craftable, but it also used to be a bit overpowered, since it used to come with the effect of strength and resistance 4. For a side note, the only thing that makes me feel that way in real life is a white monster, which costs a couple of quid or dollars. I mean, crack is probably way better, but I don't know where to get that from, so we'll stick with a monster. Now, let's weigh that up to the cost of an enchanted golden apple. To craft one, we would need 8 gold blocks, which is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, or a meter cube, times by 8. Now, 1 gold block would weigh 19,320 kilos, times by 60,000 pounds per kilo, and we would have the price of 1 gold block at 1.16 billion pounds as of May 2025. So the cost of 8 gold blocks is 9.27 billion pounds. Chuck in the cost of 1 apple, and we're up to 9,270,001 pound 20. I'll stick to the monster. This is only a quick one, but it's worth talking about some of the old item names. Do you remember sulfur, for example? It's now been renamed to gunpowder. That's how you know you've been playing this game for a long time, if you can remember that. Same goes for if you can remember the rose being named the poppy. We do now have poppies and rose bushes though, so I'll take that as a win. I know we've already touched on the old nether, but it's something that does really stick out to me as a core memory. Not necessarily because it was great or exciting or there was so much to do, perhaps the opposite, because it was a bit boring. It was cool at first, but the novelty wore off, and ultimately, there was nothing to do or see. was just netherrack, glowstone and the occasional ghast. And that's if we're talking about the old nether dimension, as opposed to the structure. That's right, back in Pocket Edition, which is now integrated into Bedrock, there was a concern that the early smartphones, iPods and tablets wouldn't be able to handle a new dimension. And so we had the nether reactor core. When we built the right structure with this core, we were able to activate it, and then this structure would appear, along with some zombie pigmen, and the items that could be found in the nether just started to appear on the floor, along with some other random items I never really knew why they show up. I remember you had to use 4 gold blocks to make this structure, and they would all turn to obsidian if you weren't quick enough to mine them. I suppose an unfortunate downside to this was that because of the limited size of the worlds, these quickly became a bit of an eyesore, and eventually the nether became accessible on mobile devices anyway, so it wasn't too long until this disappeared. On this subject though, for the iPad kids out there, your older siblings and cousins probably didn't have an iPad when they were kids. They probably had an iPod Touch. I know I did. They were basically just iPhones, but minus the actual phone part. They couldn't text or call, but they were still good for things like gaming and pictures. If nothing else, this just makes me wonder why people started giving their kids brand new iPhones instead of a simple iPod. Anyway, Minecraft was adapted for the iPod and other handheld devices, and this version was called Pocket Edition. It's worth mentioning though that the iPod 4 was 300 times less powerful than the current iPhone, so major sacrifices had to be made. Minecraft at the time really didn't have loads on it, but there was even less on the Pocket Edition. The world borders were tiny too, not to mention that there were trees, but for a while no saplings. So even I had a couple of worlds where we completely ran out of wood. There was also a weird duplication glitch, which if I remember correctly wasn't even a glitch. If you wanted to turn something like lapis into a block, you only needed 4 lapis, but then turning the back into the lapis, you got 9 ore. So you could just sit there duplicating it over and over again. Okay, let's keep pushing back. We're going really far back now, all the way back to 2011. We're talking pre-adventure update, when food didn't stack and there was no hunger bar. To restore health, all you needed to do was eat some food, no need to wait, you got instant health. Personally, I prefer the current health system, so this isn't one I feel the need to sit and reminisce about. Okay, old sound effects. People that have never even played these old versions of Minecraft have still heard these old sound effects just because of how iconic they are. Let me show you. Here's the current door sound. And the old one. The current damage sound. And the old one. New TNT. Old TNT. There's quite a few sounds that have been replaced, and yes, the new ones are probably better, but they're just not as cool. Okay, this is one that I have only seen online. Because my worlds, they're all built around spawn. But this is still worth talking about. The Farlands. Basically, up until September of 2011, if you spawned in and held the W key for over 12.5 million blocks, the terrain generation would just start to fall apart until you reach these massive and eerie cliff faces. The only thing is, they're not supposed to be there. They're a glitch. They're known as the Farlands because that's exactly that, really far away. Even with them being so far away though, people have walked the distance, although it takes years. Now, of course, there's many other things in Minecraft that just isn't around anymore. Like ocelots being the early cats, or the old blacksmith building that we used to find in villages. If you want a longer video, let me know and we'll get started on a bit of a marathon. Until then, leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you're interested in more.